When downloadable content comes out for Battlefield, they always include new maps, new weapons, new vehicles, new skins, new armies perhaps. For me, the new weapons seem to be the most replay value thing out of those things I've just mentioned. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the next DLC, which is In the Name of the Tsar, which will be mainly focusing on the Russian army, and the new weapons and vehicles that perhaps might be coming with it. Now, we had They Shall Not Pass, which comes out for non-premium players on Tuesday, so for those who haven't bought premium yet, can now get their hands on it very soon. It includes 5 new primary weapons, plus 1 new tanker weapon, which is just essentially a extended version of a pistol that's already in the game. And 4 out of the 5 new primary weapons included in the DLC are from France. So in this video we're going to go over a few of the weapons that Russia used during the war, the experimentals, and even the prototypes, some that never even saw action in World War I. So let's start off with the screenshot that we've got so far. This is the only screenshot we have at the moment of the DLC. The one thing we noticed that is a bit unusual is the cavalry that's carrying some sort of spear. The proper word for it is a lance, and it was used by a lot of cavalry units during the First World War. So we can expect that perhaps a new cavalry class. So we're going to start off with the primary weapons, and I think this is the most well known and fan favorited, the Mosin Nagant. Now this is probably well known to a lot of people, and it's made an appearance in other high budget games such as Call of Duty World at War. Now this was the service rifle from the beginning of the First World War all the way to the end, so it would make total sense that this would perhaps be the new scout weapon that will be included in the DLC. Next up is the Fedorov Automat. Now in early stages when this weapon was being developed back in 1912, it was initially a semi-automatic rifle that would hold around 10 bullets. So you're looking at perhaps a new medic rifle. However, in 1916 they tried to make a new version of it and ended up making the very first assault rifle in World War I, and it was the first one to see action in the war as well. So it would make total sense that this weapon would be the perhaps new assault rifle SMG for the assault class. It held 25 rounds per magazine. It fired only 400 rounds per minute, which is quite slow when you look at the other assault rifles in Battlefield 1. I think the MP18, which is the slower one, fires I think 540 rounds per minute. But so maybe DICE will perhaps buff it up a little bit, maybe 500 rounds, 600 rounds per minute. So it would make sense that this weapon would be the new assault weapon. However, DICE might go with the 1912 semi-automatic for the medic class, or maybe they'll include both, we don't know. Now moving on to the sidearms, they had what they called the Pulutsky M1914, which is pretty much just your standard pistol, 9 rounds in it, just a normal pistol. And they also had the Nagant M1895 revolver, which had a 7-round cycle. Again, it just looks like a normal revolver. For me, I'm not crying out for new sidearms. I mean, it'd be nice to include, but I always find it more exciting when it's primary weapons, but if they do include them, then they could well. They also took to the test of making their own grenade called the Model 1914 grenade, which is essentially just a sticky grenade like we have in Battlefield 1 right now. They also took time to make variants of these grenades, such as incendiary and gas, however they never saw action. Now they were the only infantry rifles that the Russians used that were from the Russian Empire. The rest of the weapons that were used from the other countries. They were using the Shosha, the Winchester models, and the Madison, which are all featured in Battlefield 1 as well. Now, the Russians were very unsuccessful with their tanks and heavy vehicles when it came to designing them. For example, the Tsar tank, which is, as you look at this picture, is a very awkward looking vehicle, with 2 heavy front wheels at the front, and 1 tiny tricycle wheel at the back at the center. So it had 3 wheels. It was pushable, and the weapon MG was placed at the bottom, so I'm only assuming, I haven't actually done the research, but I can only assume that they would push it into an area where they got a good position, and then would go prone down below and fire the MG with a reasonable amount of cover. They scrapped it after having a lot of concerns for the combat effectiveness it might have had. Moving on to the next part, which I think is the most exciting, of the potential behemoths that might make an appearance in the DLC. I have found a couple of prototype weapons that the Russians were working on. These never actually saw action either, but they were heavily pushed in production. Starting off with the Medilev tank. Now this was a super heavy tank. On the front, it had a 127mm gun and weighed 170 tons. It could hit a speed of around 24 kilometers per hour. It had a crew of 8 people, however, only 2 of those spots were weapon stations. They would have 1 operating the heavy 120mm at the front, and there was an additional MG at the top. So if DICE were to perhaps bring this in, it would probably just make sense if they were to just perhaps like put a couple of MGs on the sides and back perhaps. Now this next behemoth is quite interesting, I thought. There is actually very little known about this, that the only piece of information on the internet that I could find was a Wikipedia page that was actually only in Russian. So I went over to my good old friend that helped me out in school a lot, especially in foreign languages, Google Translate, and translated everything and tried to pick out the most interesting facts about it. So the first paragraph is probably what I found the most interesting, and I'll read it out to you. The design of the combat vehicle, developed by give me a moment, Prokov-Sklikov, hope that's alright, in 1915. In accordance with the project, the machine was of impressive size, powerful cannon, machine gun, and anti-sklagsery adium. I'll just go with that. Reservation. The crew was 72 people. The project was considered by the GV2U of the Russian Imperial Army, but it was rejected due to the high complexity and questionable combat effectiveness. So they had a crew of 72 people, so this thing would have to be massive. And as I've shown you here, they actually never built this. This was actually only a scale drawing. It was never actually built. There were attempts, but they were kind of pulled off. The other thing I found really interesting about it was that it was a steel rolling vehicle. So in other words, it ran on tracks. And if you look at the screenshot, you actually do see a train track in the map. So that really starts questioning myself, will we perhaps see this as the behemoth? If you guys have questions, or if you guys have got other info that I've missed out in this little video, share it down in the comments. So that's this video for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Leave your comments down below and see what you think. Tell me, do you think these weapons will make an appearance, or do you think DICE will just bring us something completely different entirely? Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye.